If your specific person keeps acting the same way and they're not changing, they're not becoming the version of them that you want, it's not actually about them. It's actually about the assumptions that you keep repeating to yourselves. So I'm going to talk to you guys today how to break that cycle, break the loop of this continuing to happen, and how to actually shift your specific person's behavior. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome here if you're new. Today we are talking about manifesting your specific person based around law of assumption practices and focusing, of course, on your actual mindset, because that's at the center of how you manifest. And we're going to get into it in just a second. I have lots of different advice and examples throughout the video that explain to you guys what kind of thoughts can you actually create? What are good examples? I like to give you guys analogies, examples, quotes, things like that, at least one of those in each of my videos. So we're going to go through everything in just a second. For anyone new or anyone who is maybe struggling and wanting some extra support, some coaching, one-to-one advice, the way that you can get this beyond obviously all my free social content is you can sign up for my LOA Coaching Darling membership. Right after this video, I'm actually going to film the Q&A. So as you're watching this, the Q&A has gone live for members. It's at the end of every single month. So it's a good way to submit your questions, get some advice and reassurance in terms of solutions and positive reinforcement. So you can get lots of exclusive content as a member. So do sign up with the join button below if you'd like to be part of that. You can also work one-to-one, so get actual coaching from me. And this is different packages, all sold through my website, linked below. Take a look if you're interested. And then all my client reviews are on my Instagram currently. I think there's a little bit on my website as well. And now let's start the video. So with the assumption trick or trap, it's really about the assumptions that you're holding in your mind without realizing. So quite subtly, you might be thinking, and this is very common, people might think, and this isn't to scare you guys. I'm not saying that you're doing it wrong. Most people probably are consciously manifesting in a really positive way and creating some type of movement. But if it's a case of assumptions subtly playing out and not changing, and you don't realize that the thoughts that you have are actually still tied to the old story, then you might think you're, or in general, people might think they're creating changes, but you're still holding on to that old version of your specific person. And that makes it harder and slower for the movement to come in, because you're blocking it by consciously reminding yourself, even though it does come from the subconscious belief, but you're consciously repeating to yourself, oh, this is just how SP behaves. Oh, of course they did this. Of course they watched my Instagram story. Of course they didn't text me. Of course, or whatever it is, even if you're just doubting or reinforcing something negative, it's feeding into an old version. You're holding on to an old assumption where in whatever form it might be, you're ultimately repeating that they haven't committed, they haven't done what you want. And you're dominantly doubting what's going on. So I'm not saying the odd thought here or there. We all have that. And it's unlikely that, you would have completely positive thoughts. You're not going to be experiencing the movement that you want, and therefore the external visible shift in their actual behavior and treatment of you, where they're actually taking positive action towards you, if you're still holding on to that old version. So you're saying your affirmations, which is perfect. The repetition will eventually break down any resistance you have. But if you don't want to experience this hot and cold where it's like slow movement, or you're not seeing it come through, or they're continuing in the present moment, the behavior that you don't want, or lack thereof behavior and communication, whatever it may be, you are going to have to be aware of your mental reactions, because you can't mentally react from the old assumptions, the old story, and the way you would expect them in the past to show up and behave. You need to be aware of these things. Where are your thoughts in alignment, or is there a kind of, I guess you could say, disparity and break between what you're trying to create and what you're telling your mind? But then the rest of the day or your mental reactions are just reflecting the old version. These are things you need to pick up on and try and be aware of more and more. So you could analogize it in a way of something that I just thought of. Imagine you and your SP are actors, actresses, and you've been handed a script, but you're the writer as well. You're the actor, the writer, the producer. There's a whole meme to do with that. I don't know if you guys saw it. I think I posted it once on my Instagram. But yeah, when you realize that you're in control of everything, you actually take on all of those roles. So imagine that you guys are actors, and and you have the script that you wrote and you know exactly, okay, I've written it all out. This is exactly how I imagine it, but it's based on exactly your mindset right now. First of all, you can ask yourself, is this going to be positive or negative? Is it going to be happily ever after, rom-com type of story, or is it like a thriller or a sad story, right? And your SP is simply going to act out that script. They cannot go off script. They cannot, kind of ad lib and just method act. They have to, well, method acting wouldn't apply. The point is, they cannot go off script. They have to follow the mental script that you've provided them. So you're performing this script and you're reading out the lines and you're saying, hold on a second, why would they do that? Why would they disappear? Why would they ghost? Why would they do all this? It's acting out the mental script that you hold in your own mind. The dominant focus, the dominant assumptions, it's like the mental inner conversations being acted out in real life. So your SP is just following that mental script that you are providing them throughout the day. When you repeat thoughts to do with not having texts from them, not, be going on dates, not having the commitment and relationship yet, this is simply them acting out the old story, what's been true up until now in your perspective, in your reality, the things that you've held on to, the dominant assumptions and reactions you've had to the 3D reality, without taking the conscious control to shift your thoughts and say, I'm going to focus on affirmations, I'm going to saturate my subconscious mind, I'm going to do whatever I can to focus on the new version, the version I'm creating that I want. Cannot simply choose to act a certain way and say, oh, do you know what, actually, I felt really negative or weird, but I'm just going to ask them out anyway. If they're thinking and feeling a certain way, they are mirror reflecting back to you what you have focused on. Whether it takes time for them to shift into a positive or negative, they will eventually reflect exactly what you focus on regarding your relationship and them and their behavior, simply as people as well. So ask yourself, what are the inner conversations that I'm having? What is that mental script? If we were to act it out and it was all written out on paper, what would it look like? So if it's not the result you want, that's a sign that you need to work a little bit more on your thoughts. There are common misconceptions, and sometimes people, even within the manifesting community I've seen, have doubt or question where they don't understand the concept of free will, and it's maybe a struggle, but really you're not forcing them to change. It's literally not manipulation. Like I'm not a dating coach. Like there's a difference, right? There's a disparity there between, potentially less than ideal advice, shall we say. So you're not literally going out to do anything. There's no manipulation, no psychological tricks. In fact, I often tell my clients in these videos, don't initiate, don't reach out, like wait for your mindset to shift and conform. Wait for things to naturally unfold. I was about to say unnaturally fold. Wait for them to naturally happen and develop and conform. You don't need to go out and force things to happen or take all the action. That's not how manifesting works. That's how writing out goals and a 3-step plan works. If you want a 3-step plan, that's completely separate. But yeah, with manifesting, you're not forcing your SP to change. It all happens the way it's supposed to. So they want their thoughts and feelings to be that way because it naturally leads them to that point. Maybe it's positive shifts in their lifestyle, their career, their self-concept, them, having more stability, whatever it is, it's meant to be positive. You're supposed to be creating a positive outcome. So I can't imagine, or nor would I ever advise for anything, negative with an SP. And that should be where your mindset is as well. Positive, uplifting, exciting, this amazing kind of like happily ever after, even if it doesn't, I'm not saying it has to be like marriage or something, but it's a happy result, right? So you want your SP to positively conform. And there's no forcing. They want to conform that way. It's their own thoughts and feelings that conform. And ironically, it's usually the SP that ends up reaching out and being like, I want you. As I said, and I always teach, and this is what law of assumption is literally based on for the key principles, it's your assumptions that are creating that result. It's not your actions. It's not you forcing the 3D. That's actually what you should not do, and not act out of desperation or a need for validation. Your assumptions, the way you think, is going to shift everything. It's literally you internally, your own mindset. So if that's all you do, think positively about your SP, everything else is supernatural and it happens in just the most perfect fluid way as it's supposed to. It might also feel a bit delulu, which is a key phrase as well people have used in the manifesting community, but it's not fake. You're not imagining it, you're not delusional or crazy or trying to do something impossible. You're simply choosing a new version of your reality. It already exists, it's already been created. So whether, you are religious or you want to and believe in, that God has created everything, it's a life path set out by God, or you just want to focus on the spiritual side or the quantum physics side, all of them are completely valid and true. So it just depends what you choose to believe in or connect with. You don't have to, pick a certain way, but realistically, everything has already been created and exists. So there is actual science to back it up as well. And you're simply choosing through your mindset, essentially quantum shifting into the version of reality where your SP and you are already together. That relationship already exists. Of course it's possible. I don't care if it's an A-list celebrity, reclusive royal family member, whatever. That just came to mind. But people that you might think, that's 1 in a billion. Of course not. Yes, it's possible. So that reality already exists. You're simply choosing with your mindset to focus on that as if it's true. And that physically shifts everything to bring it into your experience. So it's not fake. It's not impossible. You're simply using your thoughts to create that reality right now for yourself. If you do keep remembering and focusing on the old version of your SP, things that your SP has said and done, obviously in the context of negative, if it's positive, remind yourself all day long if you want, then you're choosing to repeat that version. You're holding them stuck in that place. You're gluing them to that spot, and it's going to take them a lot of effort to get unglued from that spot and keep moving forward. To prevent that cycle and to speed things up and not keep it stuck in the 3D reality being your validation and where you look for, what you believe is a fact and say, oh, SP hasn't texted, therefore manifesting isn't working. You can't keep holding on to the old patterns that you've seen with them, because obviously that led to this place where you don't want to be. And if you want to create a new outcome, you can't keep doing the same thing with your thoughts. So it's about creating, again, that mental script or mental diet, inner conversations, whatever phrase, I've used those typically, that you want to connect with, a mental script, a mental diet that connects with the version of them that you want. So everyone's a little bit different. Like I said, it could just be a text message. It could be a date. It could be marriage. There's also non-romantic SPs, of course. Friendship is an SP as well. So whatever it is, hold the version of them that you do want. And what is that mental conversation that you have with yourself throughout the day? Even if it's just a couple of seconds, is it reaffirming the old version or is it tying into the new story? So examples, as I said, I would get to a little later in the video of, this is essentially a mental diet example of how you flip that around, and not only just flipping the negative, but this is literally the type of inner conversations you should potentially have with yourself. Even like I said, a couple of seconds, just think it to yourself. It doesn't have to be a whole scene that you've, imagined in great detail. So if you're thinking, SP is like pulling away or being really cold, it's SP is always initiating. SP pursues me. SP is choosing me, and I love seeing that every single day. SP won't commit. Why are they taking so long? Why are they not showing me that commitment, even though that's what my affirmation is? You turn that around to SP is obsessed with me. SP is obsessed with committing to me. I just can't stop seeing notifications blow up on my phone about how much SP loves me and wants to be with me forever. Things like that. And again, it doesn't have to be believable. So daily practices that you can do, and obviously everything I've said so far is something you can at least think about and be more intentional with and incorporate into your daily routine. But have, an affirmation or at least an idea of an intention of I'm going to flip this around into a positive. So every time, to the best of your ability, you won't probably catch them all unless you have very few and you're very self-aware and present throughout the day, which doesn't always happen because we can get busy or stressed. But to the best of your ability, every time you get a negative thought, flip it around back into that positive and have a positive assumption to repeat to yourself. So you're creating that new version of your SP. What is the end result? Is it all based around communication? Is it around the way they feel about you? Whatever it is that you truly want to develop and create, interrupt the negative thought, shut it down, and try and shift into that new version that you are creating. I Possibly should have said this a little early in the video, but this is something I do tie into all my content. You are essentially training your subconscious. So again, it might not feel realistic or believable, a little bit delulu, but you are training your subconscious mind to let go of the old version, to let go of the old beliefs. It's not just the old version of your SP, it's the literal actual belief that's stored in your mind due to repetition and memories that you've had. Even just dating memories that could be, infiltrating into your thoughts about your SP if you don't know your SP very well yet. Always adding yet at the end of those sentences. So you're literally training your subconscious to release that and replace it with something else. It's saying, oh, wait, I keep hearing this repetition coming in from the conscious mind of SP loves me, SP loves me. Oh, well, I guess SP doesn't hate me then and doesn't ignore me constantly because I keep hearing that SP loves me. So maybe SP does love me, and it builds up. So there's a lot of, like I said, scientific and, quantum physics, quantum realm terminology and explanations that tie into how this works, also to do with your neural pathways, learned reactions, everything ties in. There's so much evidence to support this, and I will get into this in future content, but that's just a summary of how it actually works. So you're not relying on the 3D to show you what's real, what's the truth. You're literally choosing the version of your reality that already exists. So you're not just making something random up. It exists and can be yours. So you're not looking outwards externally to the 3D for validation. You're just choosing the version that you want, and you're saying, this is what's real to me. This is what exists in my reality. And your SP isn't necessarily stuck. It's just that the way you're thinking about them right now is temporarily stuck and holding them in place. But if you put together all this advice and take on board the things I've said, practice it for yourself, see what works best for you, 100% you guys can do this. So I'm going to leave this video here. I hope you guys found that useful. If you did, please do thumbs up, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and I will see you next time.